Hudson Chin had spent 6 months quietly, carefully building something real in his chest, a feeling he was almost proud of. Vivian Lau was brilliant, magnetic, and completely out of reach, and somehow that had never stopped him from hoping. He'd worked up the courage to confess during the winter formal, a handwritten note, 2 weeks of nerve, and everything on the line. Vivian had read it in front of her friends, laughed, and said 4 words that carved into him like glass. "Are you serious right now?" That was the night Hudson decided something quietly, firmly, and permanently. He was done. No anger, no dramatic speech. He simply folded that chapter closed, adjusted his glasses, and walked out of the hall alone. He transferred to a different study group, changed his lunch route, and threw himself into his part-time job at the campus library. For 3 months it worked. Vivian Lau was a person he used to know, nothing more. Then Vivian walked into the library on a Tuesday with a personal tutor, 3 designer tote bags, and a reserved study room booking, directly next to his usual seat. She smiled at him like nothing had ever happened, and Hudson felt the walls he'd built quietly creak. He requested a shift change. She donated a new reading lounge to the library and named it after her grandmother, directly replacing the section where he worked. Hudson stared at the brass nameplate on the wall and understood. This was not a coincidence. He picked up a second job at a small cafe off campus, somewhere she would never find. Within a week, Vivian Lau had booked the entire cafe for a private charity brunch and listed Hudson as the preferred server by name. He nearly dropped the coffee tray when he saw the reservation sheet. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked, setting a latte in front of her with controlled calm. Vivian looked up, and for just a split second, something real broke through the polished surface of her face, something that looked almost like guilt. "Because I made a mistake," she said quietly. "And I don't know how to fix it except to stay." Hudson said nothing. He picked up his tray and walked back behind the counter, but his hands weren't entirely steady anymore. Days became weeks. She kept showing up, not loudly, not with drama, but consistently. She'd leave his favorite study snacks on his library desk anonymously, but he always knew. She remembered things he'd only mentioned once, months ago, in passing. And despite everything he decided, despite every wall and every rerouted path, Hudson found a crack forming in his resolve. Not because she was rich. Not because she was relentless. But because she was starting to feel genuinely, painfully sincere. He confronted her properly on a rainy Thursday outside the campus gates. "I need you to tell me the truth," he said. "That night, the note, the laughing. Did any part of it bother you afterward?" She went very still. She told him the truth, the real truth, and it hit him like cold water. Her friends had been watching that night. Her father had specifically told her to cut ties with anyone below her social tier or lose her inheritance. She'd laughed because she was terrified. And she'd hated herself for it ever since. And then the twist hit Hudson harder than anything else. The anonymous scholarship that had funded his second year at university, the one that had let him stay enrolled when his family's finances collapsed, had been arranged under a false name. Her name. Vivian had paid for his education the same semester she'd humiliated him. He looked up at her slowly. Everything he thought he understood rearranged itself. She hadn't just been following him for months out of guilt. She'd been watching over him for much longer than that, quietly, from behind a curtain he never knew existed. He didn't forgive her that night. Forgiveness wasn't a thing that happened in the rain during dramatic confrontations. It was slower, quieter, and harder than that. But he stopped walking away. And for Vivian Lau, who had spent months learning what it meant to chase instead of dismiss, that was everything.